Good evening. We're coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom with breaking news.
Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat is stepping aside as leader of the People's Action Party's fourth generation leadership team. This effectively giving up his position as Singapore's future Prime Minister.
In a letter to Prime Minister Hsien, DPM Heng said the next Prime Minister should have a sufficiently long runway to lead Singapore. But he describes his runway as too short, since he'll be in his mid-60s when the COVID-19 crisis is over.
We will discuss what DPM Heng's stepping down means with our Deputy News Editor Royston Sim. But first, we take you to a press conference held earlier today where DPM Heng and PM Lee first made the announcement.
I call this conference today to brief you on our leadership succession plans. You have seen the exchange of letters between me and DPM Heng, as well as a statement of the younger ministers. Let me explain briefly the background before I ask DPM to speak. After the recent budget and Committee of Supply debates, DPM Heng spoke to me about the succession issue. I told him that I understood and respected his views. However, as he was chosen as the leader of the 4G team by the younger ministers, it was best for him to speak to the ministers himself. I therefore called a meeting of all the ministers, the SMSs, the MOSs, and the Speaker and SecGen of NTUC yesterday. The DPM explained his decision to them. I then proposed that the younger ministers caucus to decide how they would respond to DPM's decision and what they wanted to do about the succession. I asked Gan Kim Yong to chair this session as party chairman, and then DPM and myself and the two SMs left them to carry on. Earlier this afternoon, we met the PAP MPs to inform them of the outcome of these discussions. This press conference is to make the news public. I will now invite DPM Heng to speak, and then Kim Yong and Lawrence will brief you on the outcome of the 4G team's caucus and their response to DPM's announcement. Swee Keat.
Thank you, dear. It's a mic. No.
You press. I have to turn off my...
Yeah. Well, good afternoon. More than 2 years ago, the 4G leadership chose me to lead the team. We have bonded as a team and have worked well together since. COVID-19 struck last year. The pandemic is still raging worldwide, and many expect this to be a prolonged crisis. The virus has also accelerated significant structural shifts, such as strategic competition between major powers, discontent with globalization, and the digital revolution. Also, we must deal with the challenges of an aging population and a desire for greater diversity in politics. Our top priority is to deal with the immediate crisis and keep our people safe. I thank PM for his commitment to stay on until the crisis is over, so that he hands over a Singapore that is in good working order to the next leader. The next Prime Minister should have a sufficiently long runway to master the demands of leading our nation, formulate and see through our longer-term strategies, and win the confidence and support of Singaporeans to build this shared future together. This year, I'm 60. I will be close to the mid-60s when the crisis is over. Now, when I also consider the ages at which our first 3 prime ministers have taken on the job, I would have too short a runway should I become the next prime minister then. We need a leader who will not only rebuild Singapore post-COVID-19, but also lead the next phase of our nation-building efforts. When I had a stroke in 2016, with the great work of my medical team and the care and encouragement of my family, friends, colleagues, and fellow Singaporeans, I recovered fully. Having worked with PM, ESM, and MM, I know that the top job imposes exceptional demands on the office holder. It is in a very different post-COVID world, the demands will be even more exacting. While I'm in good health today, it is in the best interests of the nation for someone who is younger to tackle the huge challenges ahead. After careful deliberation and discussions with my family, I've decided to step aside as leader of the 4G team so that a younger leader who will have a longer runway can take over. You know, when I stood in the election in 2011, it was not with the ambition to become the Prime Minister. In fact, I did not even ask what appointments I would get. I think PM very gracefully, appointed me as a minister, education minister straight away. But I did not ask what appointments I would get. When, I grew up in a kampong, and the first time I saw the borders of Singapore was when I left Singapore for my overseas study in the UK. The first time I was on a plane, the first time that I used a fork and knife. Now, so, my life has been uplifted in significant ways. So has been my family and those of, my friends in school. So, when I was asked, so I've been in public service since the age of 19, and I've been serving in various capacity throughout. So when I was asked, in fact, several times, each time I turned down, but eventually I contested in the 2011 election. Now, I believe that Singapore politics should not be about self, but what is good for Singapore and how we can continue to create the conditions for our people to continue to uplift themselves, just as I have been uplifted. And which was why when PM appointed me as Education Minister, I was delighted because, the future of our nation is in giving our children the best possible education that we can give. So, Singapore politics is not about self, but what is good for Singapore. And I've been constantly thinking of what is in the best interest of Singapore and Singaporeans, and whether it is in Singapore's best interest if the runway for the Prime Minister is too short. And this is especially so in a post-COVID world, because I think the disruptions brought about by COVID will be very significant. So I appreciate the support of Singaporeans and have made the decision with the best interests of the nation and our people at heart. So together with PM and the senior ministers, I'll continue to mentor the younger ministers as the 4G develops and identify another leader from among them. I'll remain as Deputy Prime Minister and Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies, as well as Chairman National Research Foundation. I'll continue to do my best in the service of Singapore and Singaporeans. Thank you.
Thanks, Swee Keat. Swee Keat's been an important member of my team for the last 10 years. I'd like to thank him for his many contributions in MOE and MOF, and especially in this past year. In MOE, he led many groundbreaking initiatives, for example, promoting excellence in every school, and also in character and citizenship education. And in MOF, with the Committee for the Future Economy, with the Future Economy Council following up on that, and then the COVID-19 budgets last year. In view of Swee Keat's decision to stand aside as leader of the 4G team, I discussed with him his future role in Cabinet. I asked him to continue as DPM and Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies, and I'm glad that he's agreed to stay on. He will have a full agenda, building on what he has started. There's urgent work to do to take our economy beyond COVID-19. This will also dovetail with his role as chairman of the National Research Foundation, where we are making steady progress in promoting research, innovation, and enterprise. I also look forward to Swee Keat continuing to make broader contributions to government policy and to party work. However, DPM will relinquish the finance portfolio at the next cabinet reshuffle. I had discussed this move with DPM last year when we worked out cabinet appointments following the general election. We agreed that Budget 2021 would be an important budget, not an emergency budget like the 5 in 2020, but a budget to take Singapore beyond COVID-19. I told him it would be good for him to see through Budget 2021, and then he could give up the MOF portfolio to concentrate on the broader coordinating responsibilities. There will be consequential moves in other ministries, and I intend to announce the reshuffle in about 2 weeks' time. In the party, Swee Keat remains First Assistant Secretary General. There will be no change. Swee Keat has made a selfless decision to stand aside. His actions are made with the best interests of Singapore in mind, and they are fully in keeping with the spirit of public service and sense of duty that motivated him to step forward and stand for election when I asked him to do so in 2011. Nevertheless, as the 4G statement acknowledges, this is a significant setback to our succession plans. The 4G team want to give themselves more time to work out new succession arrangements. I've therefore agreed to stay on until such time as a new 4G leader is chosen and is ready to take over. Our immediate focus is on the health and economic crisis, but both they and I are very conscious that succession remains an urgent task and cannot be put off indefinitely. I think it will take longer than a few months, but I hope that they will reach a consensus and identify a new leader before the next general elections. I have no intention of staying on longer than necessary. Meanwhile, we must not lose focus on the country's pressing health and economic challenges. My cabinet will continue to work as one united team to overcome these challenges and lead the country forward. That's what Singaporeans expect of us, and rightly so. It's also the only way to maintain confidence in Singapore and to keep our country succeeding year after year. Now let me say a few words in Mandarin. 副总理王瑞杰先生正式提出，他将把领导年轻部长的责任交给新的人选。年轻部长接受了他的要求。我告诉副总理，我了解并支持他的决定，但我希望他会继续在内阁服务。我很欣慰，他同意了。他将继续担任副总理兼经济政策统筹部长，以及继续领导 NRF 国立研究基金会，还有主持 JCBC， 那就是新中双边合作联合委员会等等。过去10年，副总理在我的内阁担任了重要任务。首先在教育部任职将近5年，接着在财政部也有5年半的时间。在这2个部门，他都推出了重点措施，特别是在过去1年，为了确保新加坡和国人能够应对我们这一代的危机，在短短的1年内推出了5项预算案，让我国的工友和企业能够安然脱险。我非常感谢副总理这份为国为民服务的热忱和爱心，相信年轻部长们能够继续从他学习到更多，让他们更有信心领导我国应付挑战，迈向未来。Kim Yong.
Thank you. You have just heard DPM's announcement as well as PM's remarks. DPM met the Cabinet, Ministers and Political Office holders as well as the Secretary General of NTUC earlier to share his decisions with us and explain his reasons for doing so. Thereafter, we discussed among ourselves with regard to our collective response as well as the next steps. I was there to facilitate the discussion, and we generally, overall, accepted DPM's decision, regrettably, and agreed that it is in the interest of Singapore. We are glad that he has agreed to stay on as part of the team. I would now like to invite Minister Lawrence Wong to share more details of the outcome of the discussion. Lawrence.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The 4G has put out a statement regarding this matter. This statement represents the collective views of all the ministers, SMSs, MOSs, the Speaker and Secretary General of NTUC, who were present at the caucus which party chairman had chaired. We have issued the statement, so let me now briefly highlight some of the key points. We respect DPM Heng's decision to stand aside as leader of the 4G team. We appreciate what a difficult decision it must have been, but no one could have foreseen the disruption brought about by COVID-19. We know that DPM Heng had made this decision with the long-term interest of Singapore at heart. And so we have accepted the decision regretfully. The decision by DPM exemplifies the qualities that we have long associated with him as a leader. Someone who is selfless, with a deep sense of duty and a strong conviction to do what is best for Singapore and Singaporeans. These traits distinguish DPM as a leader, and over the years he has played a critical role in leading key initiatives in the government, be it the Singapore Together movement, our national R&D and economic restructuring efforts, or implementing multiple budgets over a short period of time to steer us through the pandemic. Importantly, he has left a strong imprint on all of us in terms of his collaborative and consultative style of leadership. So we are very glad that DPM Heng will remain a key member of the team and will continue his roles as DPM and Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies. We've all benefited from his experience and expertise. Speaking on a personal note, I have worked closely with DPM since the both of us entered politics in 2011, initially in the Ministry of Education and then subsequently in the Ministry of Finance. I have benefited tremendously from his mentorship and guidance, and I'm very grateful for it. All of us on the team look forward to his continued advice and contributions. Ensuring that Singapore emerges stronger from this crisis and tackling Singapore's pressing immediate challenges remain our foremost priority. So under these circumstances, the 4G team will need more time to select a leader from amongst us. That is why we have requested PM Lee to stay on as Prime Minister until such time when a new successor is chosen by the team and is ready to take over. And we are very grateful that PM has agreed to our request. This unexpected turn of events is a setback for our succession planning. We recognize that Singaporeans will be concerned. We seek your support and understanding as we choose another leader from the team. We will continue working as a team to serve our people and to earn the confidence and trust of all Singaporeans. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite questions from the media. Straits Times.
Warren.
Good afternoon, PM, DPM and Ministers. Warren Fernandez from the Straits Times. PM, this event, this development is quite unexpected and I think will come as quite a shock to many people in Singapore. And I think one question on many minds will be whether the outcome of the recent general election at both the national and the constituency level had any bearing on the decisions that came to be taken, especially since the factors that have been cited on age and health were not unknown factors to everyone, including the 4G when they made their choice of leader. So I think many will be bewildered about this sudden rethink. So maybe you could address that.
Yeah. I'll ask Swee Keat to answer, but perhaps I'll just say that Swee Keat's already explained his decision to step aside in his letter to me, which you have. The 4G had chosen Swee Keat as their leader to be first amongst equals, but he's given them his reasons, and the ministers have accepted his reasons and his decision. For my part, I have told him that I understand and respect his decision, because it's really, to accept it or not is for the ministers to decide. But I know that he has made his decision in the best interest of the party, of the government, and also of Singapore. Swee Keat.
Well, the results in the GE 2020 performance, and in particular in the East Coast GRC, is not the reason why I decided to step aside. When I have been an MP in Tampines for 10 years and worked very well with the team, and I built a certain rapport with the residents. But when East Coast needed reinforcement, I decided to go. It is a completely new ground for me, and I did my best together with my team. And when I went during the campaign period, there were residents who told me that they changed their mind to vote for the PAP since I was there. So that is not for me to judge, it's for others to judge. But my decision is, as I have emphasized, that I am 60 this year, and the COVID situation has disrupted all our plans. I'm very glad that PM is continuing to stay on to see Singapore through this crisis. I think PM has been in politics. In fact, he has been a prime minister longer than most of us have even been in politics. So we are in a good, safe pair of hands. And that is important, which means that by the time I take over, I would be in my mid-60s. And the runway is really too short. And moreover, in a post-COVID world, as I mentioned, when I was preparing the budget after budgets last year, the one issue that kept coming up in my mind is, what will a post-COVID world be like? First, when will this COVID crisis be over? And I think it will take time, notwithstanding the rollout of vaccinations in Singapore and globally. And second, more critically, what will a post-COVID world look like? What will change? And as I've mentioned in my letter, I think a lot will change. And so Singapore needs to plan long-term, and we need someone who is younger with a longer runway to not think in just 1 or 2 election terms, but to think about the long-term future of Singapore and of Singaporeans. And the challenges that we have, the structural challenges, which will creep up day by day, and which will become more and more significant and interact in ways which we cannot predict, will mean significant challenges ahead for Singapore. So it is better for someone younger, with a longer runway, with the support of our people, to take Singapore through in this next phase of our nation building.
Chairman, PM, DPM, may I just add some responses?
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead. I think just want to respond to Warren's question about the decision of the 4G back in 2018. Now, in 2018, the 4G team came together. We collectively agreed that DPM Heng was the best choice to lead us. By far, he had the most experience amongst all of us. At MAS, he was a steady pair of hands that steered Singapore through the financial crisis. And since 2011, he had been full minister, and at MOE made very significant changes. And certainly at MOF, 5 years, 10 budgets. So 10 years of effort compacted into 5. But equally importantly, all of us felt that the very affable, collaborative, consultative approach that is very typical of DPM, that it typifies him, best represented the kind of governance approach and style that the 4G aspired to. Working together with Singaporeans, listening to them, conversing with them, working together with them. And that inspired us. And since he became the leader of the 4G, we've coalesced around DPM, we've gelled with him, we've gelled as a team. And most obviously in the last 1 year, during the crucible of COVID, and it's still a crisis raging on in Singapore and the world. And we worked together closely, had to deal with lots of trade-offs. DPM guided us, consulted us, worked with us, managed the different trade-offs, 5 budgets to secure the lives and livelihoods of Singaporeans. That was a very clear example. You'll be familiar also with his coordination of the Future Economy Council. It's not just bringing us as younger ministers together, but bringing together captains of industry, leaders of the labour movement, academics, SMEs, associations, all coming together in this very new style of collaborative governance. And we work together. And the Singapore Together movement, I've had that privilege, together with Grace, to work very closely with DPM on that movement, to bring Singaporeans along the journey of nation building. And so that really exemplifies his style and approach of leadership, and a kind of leadership that all of us, the younger ministers, aspire towards. And so I say this for myself, and I think I say this for the whole of the 4G, that we know DPM's decision was a painful and difficult one. And we accept it regrettably, we understand it. And not just over the last 2 years, but over the last 10 years, I and my colleagues have looked up to him and continue to do so for guidance, for advice, and for partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Zhao Bao.
Hi, I'm Shobi from Zhao Bao. Just a question for DPM. Sorry to press on the same question that Warren just pointed out, but we are quite puzzled with your citation of health as well as age as the considerations, because in 2018, when you were chosen as the 4G leader, you were already recovering well from the stroke. As for age, well, we all see that younger leaders are no longer the norm. So why the decision? Especially why now, when we are still fighting the COVID pandemic? I have yet another question. We would like to find out, what is your thinking process? When was it that you first started to mull over this whole issue of succession? Thank you.
Well, Shobi, I think first... Well, first, on your first question about, about my health, I mean, after all, I as you said, I've recovered. And indeed, the doctors certified that I had a clean bill of health. And I returned to work because I was confident that my health allowed it. But COVID-19 has really forced us to relook many issues, including succession. And as I said, a post-COVID world will be a very different world. And when I was preparing the 5 budget last year, I kept thinking about what is different, what is going to be different. And I have to say that each time as I look at it, there are some trends which I think are indeed going to be very different. And along the way, I added new things that I think is going to be a very different world. Now, so while my health is is good now, and I really am very thankful to my medical team for taking such great care of me and the support of my family and friends and colleagues. It is a decision that I made taking into account my experience working with working with Mr. Goh, and of course working with PM. So I was PPS to and I had many sessions, many conversations with him. And he has been extremely careful about his health. But even then, he would from time to time say, it is different when you are older. I worked with ESM when he was Prime Minister. I was PERMSEC in the Ministry of Trade Industry. We had many overseas trips, many international conferences. I also had the privilege of observing him at close range. And similarly with PM. So this job of leading the nations places exceptional demands on the person, on the office holder. And while my health is not an issue today, I think it is better. But my age, I am 60 this year, and by the time I take over, because of the COVID, that has been disrupted, and by the time I'll be close to my mid-60s, and with each passing year, I think it'll be different, because I think for most jobs, and I think the 60s can be a very productive time of life for most of us. But I think the top job imposes exceptional demands on the office holder. And having thought about it very carefully, having discussed with my family, I thought it is better that I step aside, have someone younger with a longer runway who can re-examine many of the issues that we have been looking at, come with a fresh mind and greater vitality to deal with this very difficult, very challenging situation. Yeah. On your question about when did I start thinking about it? Well, I started thinking about it when I was appointed, because I do not want to take on any job which I cannot deliver. As those of you who have worked with me know, I am a workaholic, and I put my heart and soul into what I do, and therefore I've been thinking about it as to whether am I the right person. And last year's pandemic was a real turning point, because I don't think in the history of Singapore that we had a finance minister that had to deliver 5 budgets in 1 year. But I am thankful that I have a very good team who work very well with me, and that we were able to do what we had to do under very exceptional circumstances. And given that crisis is not going to be once in a long while affair, in the last 20-odd years, I've gone through 3 major crises: Asian financial crisis, the global financial crisis, and now the pandemic. Each one worse than the previous. So I think it is better for someone who is younger, who have a longer runway, to take on this job. Yeah.
Next, Walter.
PM, assuming we accept Walter Fernandez, Channel News Asia, if we accept DPM's reasons for wanting to step down, can you help us to understand that you had this conversation with him after the general elections to relinquish his portfolio as finance minister? Yes. Now that he has chosen to step aside as the leader of the 4G, you have decided to retain him as DPM.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity to step up some of the younger 4G ministers to the DPM level, to train them, to test them, while DPM Heng Swee Keat continues as coordinating minister? Or are they not ready to step up?
Well, you're asking me about my future plans, and in particular my next press conference. So you will get an answer in due course. Today's focus is on DPM's role. I've asked him to stay on as DPM and coordinating minister. give up the finance portfolio, but as DPM and coordinating minister, I think he will have his hands full. Because we've had strong budgets to see us through the emergency. It's emergency medicine. Now you need long-term strengthening, reinforcement, building, and that's not just budgets, but also economic policies and also educational and social policies too. And so as coordinating minister, these are all things which will preoccupy him in MOF, in MTI, in MOM, in MCI, working with the ministers and bringing them together. There's also the external work, the FEC, the Future Economic Council, and work with our partners on all the different sectors of the economy, such as working on the ITMs, the Industry Transformation Plans, maps, which we have. Swee Keat is also chairman of the NRF, and there our efforts are starting to bear fruit, and we need to develop the whole ecosystem of research, enterprise, innovation, and make the connection from basic research to applied research to national challenges and make a difference to the future of Singapore in strategic areas. So it dovetails nicely with the economic work. And the other responsibility which Swee Keat will have is to chair the JCBC, which is the Joint Committee on Bilateral Cooperation with China, Joint Council on Bilateral Cooperation with China, is an important forum for engaging them and promoting our extensive ties with them. He's also going to continue to oversee Singapore Together and ensure that the public and community participate fully in our national deliberations and have a more active part helping to come up with and to formulate policies. So I think for doing all this work, it's useful to be both DPM and coordinating minister. In due course, when younger ministers are ready to be elevated to be DPM, at that point we can think about further changes. This is a continuing evolution.
I'm Chin Kang from Mediacorp Chinese News. I have a question for Minister Chan. In the press conference on the new cabinet lined up last July, you mentioned that the 4G team has no plan to discuss or change support for DPM Heng as leader. Is there a change now and why? And also a follow-up question that you were chosen as DPM's deputy. So are you next in line in the succession? Thank you.
Thank you, Chin Kang, for the questions. On the first question, prior to DPM Heng's decision to step aside, we were all working on the basis that the issue of succession has been settled. We were all entirely focused on making sure that Singapore can get through the COVID situation and emerge stronger. On the health side, on the economic side, and all other dimensions, we wanted Singapore to emerge stronger from this. Now that DPM has decided to step aside, we will need to relook at the issue of succession. We understand where DPM is coming from. We know that it has been a difficult decision for him, and he has done it in the best interest of Singapore. That is just Swee Keat's character, always thinking about what's best for Singapore and Singaporeans. So now, the team will continue to remain focused on making sure that Singapore can emerge stronger from this COVID pandemic, and at the same time, to establish the foundations for our future success. In making any decision, all of us in the team will continue to put the interests of Singapore and Singaporeans foremost. just as how we have been taught, how he has been shown to us, and how previous generations of leaders have all exemplified this. To your second question, when DPM Heng chose me as his deputy in 2018, and the team supported it, now that DPM has decided to step aside as a leader of the 4G, the 4G team should be given the opportunity to relook at the question of succession holistically. And we will make a collective decision on who will be the next leader for the 4G in due course. Now, having said that, I must add that our leadership succession plans goes beyond just choosing a leader. It is more than that. It is always about finding and forming the strongest team possible for Singapore, so that Singapore have the best chance to defy the odds of history, to not only survive, but to thrive. And that we will continue to do, and that is what our entire team is committed to do for Singapore and all Singaporeans.
Mothership. Martino.
Hi, good afternoon, PM and DPM. I'm Martino from Mothership. Are there any likely candidates tipped to become the next leader of 4G? In 2018, there are 3 frontrunners. Are there any frontrunners this time? And is there anyone in the lead? Thank you.
Yi Gang can
let me take that question. Thank you, Martino. But maybe before I start, I just also want to say, 2015, when I came into government, I took over from Swee Keat and a Ministry of Education, and it has been a privilege. As you know, the education system went through many changes and going through a reform process, and I think really Swee Keat planted the seeds, got the snowball rolling, set the tone, reducing the overemphasis on academic results, created multiple pathways through Aspire, and that made my job a lot easier, and we keep the momentum going. So it's been a privilege, and I look forward to continue to work with Swee Keat. On Martino's question, for a country like Singapore, I think a good government is critical. And the leadership of that government is also, therefore, very important. So therefore, succession planning is a very, very serious matter. But there's always a tendency to look at succession planning in terms of a race now. Who's in front, who's behind, who overtook who, what is the relative competitive position of each individuals. But actually, that is not the PAP way. Our way is fundamentally, we look at the team, how the team work together, how we complement each other's strengths, and where we have shortcomings, which we all do, how do we support each other? So with time, if we take that team approach, with time, you develop chemistry, dynamics, camaraderie, rapport, and over time, the individual members rally around someone who then emerge as a leader, first among equals. So first among equals doesn't mean the person is the boss that direct people to do work, but the person that can best bring out the talent and strengths of everybody else, and the team builder. So fundamentally, it's different. When it's a race, you only have one winner at the end, standing on the podium with a medal around his or her neck. With a team, we fight heart and soul on the field, and if we win, we have a trophy for the nation. And in that winning team, you will have a captain that can bring out the best of everybody. So that process of developing a strong team and rallying around a first among equal leader takes some time. What we have just learned is a big change, a big reconfiguration. So we seek the understanding and support. We seek your understanding and support to give us some time to regroup. And in due course, we will select a leader amongst us. Rest assured, the 4G team, we are very aware, very conscious of the urgency and seriousness of this task.
Berita Harian, Zak.
I'm Saad from Bitaran. Can I ask a question to Minister Masagos? Because I want to ask in Malay, with permission, Chairman. Menteri Masagos, Menteri telah menjadi rakan sepasukan dengan DPM Heng untuk sekian lama sebelum ini. Jadikah, apakah pandangan Menteri Masagos mengenai DPM Heng dan keputusan beliau untuk mengenepikan diri daripada menjadi Perdana Menteri? Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Cik Saad. Pasukan 4G telah memilih DPM memimpin kami pada tahun 2018. Beliaulah yang paling berpengalaman di kalangan kami, bersifat konsultatif dan mempunyai semangat kepasukanan yang kami sangat inginkan dari sebagai gaya kepimpinan untuk pasukan 4G. Kami faham keputusan DPM adalah sangat sukar. Kami tentu ia menghampakan kami dan kami akur rakyat prihatin. Kami menerima dan menghormati keputusannya. Yang jelas selama ini PAP telah menghasilkan kepimpinan yang terbaik, yang kuat, yang penting mampu bekerjasama sebagai pasukan yang bersepadu. Setiap anggota pasukan 4G telah menganggota berpengalaman kerana menerjui portfolio masing-masing bertahun-tahun dan juga sokong-menyokong satu sama lain. Malah krisis COVID-19 yang kami semua sebagai rakyat mengharungi telah menguatkan lagi ikatan kami, dan sekarang ini kami berani mengatakan kami semakin kuat secara individu dan sebagai pasukan. Kami harap masyarakat faham bahawa kami perlu waktu untuk memilih pemimpin baru pada masa yang sesuai. Kami akan terus memberi fokus untuk bersama menjamin kesejahteraan rakyat mengatasi krisis wabak COVID-19 dan juga membuat persiapan menghadapi cabaran baru setelah COVID-19 ini. Kami pasukan 4G berazam untuk mengekalkan tahap kepercayaan rakyat Singapura kepada kami dan menjadi pasukan yang kuat, berusaha yang terbaik bagi warga dan rakyat Singapura.
Zakir?
I was just wondering whether, Mas, for the benefit of the other media, would you summarize it in English? Yeah, Mas and I have been together the longest since our days in Tampines.
The 4G selected DPM in 2018 as our leader because he was the most experienced among us. He was very consultative and has a team style of leadership that engenders the team spirit that we all in the 4G look out for. We know that the decision that DPM has made is a very difficult one, and we respect this decision. We know this is a setback, and for sure the Singaporeans are concerned. But the PAP has always delivered strong leadership because of our ability to work as a cohesive team. All of us over the years have held on to portfolios, working together as a team. And COVID-19 especially has brought us together even more, tested us in areas where we would never have done if not for such a crisis. And I think we have come out better as individuals as well as a team. Now, we also will be choosing a new leader in due course, and we hope Singaporeans will give us time to do that. In the meantime, our focus is to make sure all of us come out of this crisis better, well, and we'll focus on the well-being of Singaporeans and also preparing for post-COVID-19. The 4G team is determined to ensure that we retain the trust of Singaporeans and always do what's best for Singapore and Singaporeans.
Thank you. Hi, PM Minister Zakir Hsien from the Straits Times. I think we heard Minister Ong describe the urgency of the task of the 4G team deciding on the leader. Can Singaporeans expect, say, a rough timeline as well as a bit more detail on the process for selecting the next 4G leader? And does PM and ministers expect this to be done, say, well ahead of the next GE or in good time?
Well, as I said in my main statement just now, this is a matter which is on top of their minds. The immediate priority is to deal with the health and economic crisis, but we know that succession is a very, very important and urgent issue. As Yikang explained just now, choosing a leader isn't just ranking the people and saying who's going to be the best choice. It's also really about team building and developing the team and developing the relationships amongst the team members so that over time, from that balance and that chemistry, you are able to identify who amongst the people can most maximize the performance of the team and make all the pieces fit together and add up to more than the sum of its parts. This is a process which takes more than a few months, but I think that it should not take more than a couple of years. And I hope that very much it will have a clear outcome before the next general election. And that would be a reasonable time frame to work towards. In fact, that time frame is also the reason why we have decided to come out with this question, with this issue now, rather than wait until a new leader is identified, because the neatest thing to do would be one person steps aside and then, well, another person immediately steps into place and it's seamless. And if it was something which you could do within a few days or weeks or even a couple of months, I think it's something which we would have seriously considered. In that case, let's finish the process, line up everything neatly and then go out with one announcement. But if we are talking about a process which is likely to take a few years, then once the first development has taken place, that you know that the minister is stepping aside, I think that is important material information which it is our responsibility to tell our stakeholders. They have to know, the ministers have to know, the public has to know. And amongst the ministers, amongst the team, knowing this, you will have to reshape and reconfigure the relationships and the responsibilities in order that a new balance will be struck and a new person can emerge and not be frozen into an old position which is no longer reflective of what is actually going to happen. And the public also has to know what the real status is in order to know what progress is being made and where they stand. Because otherwise, if you just continue on the basis of the previous information, when something material has happened, if we were a listed company, we would have clear obligations to make this public within a quite quick time, which is what we have done.
Zhao Bao.
Hi, Minister Hsien. I'm Yong Mei from Zhao Bao. The 4G has chosen DPM Heng as the leader 2 years ago. How is it that the arrangement cannot be seen through for Singapore is so well known for its implementation and planning. And do you not think that the past 2 years has been wasted? And also, without a clear leader for the 4G team, will the 4G team will the working of the 4G team be affected?
Maybe Grace, you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Kim Yong, and thank you for the question. Indeed, you're right. In 2018, DPM was our choice. But I think since then, COVID-19 has served us a curveball that really disrupted our plans. We didn't foresee that. I think nobody could foresee the disruption that COVID has brought to our lives, to not just in Singapore, the whole world. So it is, important for us to understand DPM's decision. He has explained that, and I think with regret that we accept. And I must put on record that I have great admiration of working with DPM Heng as a leader. I worked with him very closely in the SG Together. He has enabled a lot of the platforms, participation of Singaporeans, all sectors. So I really, enjoyed working with him tremendously. But this is really, I'm saddened by his decision. But I think he has explained, so I won't belabor the point. But I think now it is on us to choose a new leader, and we must do so with time. So we hope that Singaporeans will give us the time to do so. But if you look at 2018 to now, ironically, the disruptions of COVID-19 has given us a lot of tests and challenges to really work as a team and also hone our experience as ministers. The 4G team has been actively involved, actively managing the COVID-19 pandemic. And in fact, the 4G ministers actually host most of the ministries. I think the last few years, we have grown. We have grown as individual ministers. We have gained experience. We have fostered greater connection with Singaporeans because the crisis required us to do so. So there's been a lot of changes, whether it is in changing the way that we go about our daily lives, having a circuit breaker, safe distancing management, managing the borders, managing the migrant workers, all these challenges that have come our way. I think Singaporeans could see how the 4G ministers have fared and have really taken on the role in their stride. We have also grown as a team because many of these challenges that I've just described actually involve a lot of teamwork, a lot of coordination behind the scene. And I think this has really boded well, as my colleagues, Desmond, as Ikang have said. Actually, we have really gelled as a team. We have many opportunities to debate, to argue, to disagree, to agree with one another. And I think this has given us confidence that we will be able to select our new leader in good time. But ultimately, I think we are very aware that it is Singaporean that will have to make the decision whether the team leader and the team are acceptable. So on that note, we want to work very, very closely with Singaporeans to gain their confidence and their trust in us.
Channel 8.
Hi, my question is I'm Gao Wai from MediaCorp Channel, Chinese News. My question is for Minister Gan. The PAP has also been good in terms of forward planning, and also with this big shift, how can Singaporeans continue to have confidence in the government, or to be exact, the PAP leadership? We would appreciate if Minister Gan could answer in Mandarin. Thank you.
Thank you. 首先呢，让我感谢国人给予人民行动党的委托和支持，我们非常珍惜大家的支持，我们不会把它当作是理所当然的。我们的团队也将继续努力， 谋求国人的幸福。副总理做出的今天的这个宣布呢，是经过慎重的考虑的，他以国家的利益为重，我们也尊重他的决定。我相信大家也可以理解他的决定。领导行动党和领导国家，不是单靠个人的才干的，而是一个团队。人民行动党的使命是确保有一批能够以民为先、以国为重，努力改善国人生活的团队。副总理愿意留任在内阁，我们非常的感激。他的经验也将有助于培育年轻的部长们。虽然由于冠病的影响和副总理的这个决定呢，导致领导交替的步伐有所延迟，我们会继续尽力，确保这个领导交替的工作会继续的进行。这可能需要一点时间，我们也不能够操之过急。总理依然希望在新的领袖能够出炉之后呢，并且做好准备之后，尽早的交棒。这个在总理刚才的讲话中也已经表明了。副总理是我们的团队里面当初一致推选的领袖，我们也会全心全意的继续支持他的这项的决定，也支持他在内阁里面继续的工作。谢谢。
Good afternoon, PM Ministers. PM, the next Prime Minister will need a decent runway to become the Prime Minister. It can't be a short takeoff. And DPM Heng has mentioned that he expects the crisis to last at least until he's in his mid-60s, which will be about 5 years from now. So can we expect you to be the Prime Minister for another 5 years at least?
I hope not. As I said just now, I will stay on a bit longer so that the new successor can be identified and can get ready. And as soon as he's ready, I would like to hand over to him. I hope then to be able to help him and his team to succeed and to take Singapore forward beyond the time when I'm Prime Minister. I think that's a responsible thing to do. I know people look around the world and they look at the United States, they look at some models closer to home, and they say, you are still very young in comparison. Well, maybe so, but those are different models for different countries. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But in Singapore, I think it's not just wanting a younger minister with energy and the runway, but also wanting a system where we are able to carry this from PM to PM, from government to government, and have a system which will provide high-quality government for the long term for Singapore. And that's what I would like to be able to do.
We have time for 2 more questions, probably. Walter?
PM, you've spoken about this incident, these developments as a significant setback. The 4G have said that they need time to select their next leader. So there is going to be a period of uncertainty in the leadership succession. How do you think the superpowers like China, our neighbors like Malaysia and Indonesia, and most importantly, perhaps the investors, the foreign investors who are here, going to navigate this period of uncertainty? And will it be a case of them being a little bit uncertain about how to deal with the ministers?
Maybe I ask Chun Sing to respond to the investors first.
Thank you, Walter, for your questions. Clear succession planning, policy coherence, policy consistency have been the hallmarks of our system. These are also the factors that have put us in good stead to attract the long-term investments, to plant their investments in Singapore and create good jobs for all Singaporeans. This is also the reason why we have chosen to be upfront with our people, with our investors, our foreign counterparts, on our circumstances so that we can minimize any unwarranted speculation. Now, notwithstanding the latest developments, the team, the system, the plans, the processes, the policies are all still in place to provide that continuity and stability for the investors. And we will continue to work hard to distinguish ourselves as a safe harbor for investors to mobilize their capital, aggregate their talent, protect their intellectual property amidst the global uncertainties. So all our systems, plans, processes, policies were developed by the team collectively. Notwithstanding this development, the Prime Minister, the senior ministers, DPM, and the various ministers in charge of our economic policies, foreign policies, are all still around. And because we have developed those plans collectively, I think the investors can continue to expect coherence and continuity in our approach. And investors can continue to be confident in the way that we will conduct ourselves. And the two proof points to convince the investors will be this: our teamwork and our laser-sharp focus on ensuring that we deliver on our promise to bring Singapore to a higher plane, to emerge stronger from this crisis, and to deliver a better quality of life for all our people. So when people look at us, I think they will continue to see these two proof points: the teamwork that has brought us here so far and will continue to bring us forward, and also the laser-sharp focus on delivery of our promises to our country and our people.
I'll just add a little bit on how foreign countries will see us. I would say our politics in Singapore works very differently than politics in nearly every foreign country. It's a fact, and it's, I think, the reason why Singapore politics works well for Singapore. As a result, when we interact with leaders and ministers from other countries, they assess us, they make their assessments, and I think by and large they have a respect for us and we're able to work with them. So I think they will assess us based on the quality of leadership which our political system and political process produces. How will they react to this change? I would say in the first instance, top line, the team has not changed. The same ministers are still there. I'm still the PM, Swee Keat is still the DPM, and they will be dealing with the same people, and that's what matters to them if you take the 2, 3, 4-year point of view, which in diplomacy is quite a long time. In the longer term, what they will notice is the quality of the Singapore ministers and PMs and DPMs. And if out of this process we are able to sustain high-quality ministers and leaders for the country, then I think that it will have been the right path forward for Singapore. If at the end of this, the standards go down and they look at us and say, it's no different from so many other places, we are no longer of value to them. And that Singapore will be the worse off for it. So I think that's how they will see it, not so much whether there is what we would call a relief in place, in progress, one person standing aside, another person getting prepared to come in, but what are the outcomes in terms of persons in charge, quality, and the direction for the country. And that is what we must make sure we can maintain and keep stable while working through the succession process.
And ministers, this question is for DPM Heng. next month, I think, will mark your exactly 10 years as a Member of Parliament. So, yes, with this sudden announcement, I guess the next natural question to ask would be, will you still run in the next GE? Will you still contest? And yes or no, why? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. First, let me first thank my residents in the East Coast GRC for giving me and my team their mandate. And my team and I remain as committed as before to serving them. Now, we value the support given to us, I mean, as a party, and will continually fight to retain it. The PAP has never taken the support of Singaporeans for granted. And I will continue to serve Singaporeans to the best of my ability in ways which are useful and meaningful. And as explained as I shared with you in a way, my life history, I have been in public service since serving NS at the age of 19. And I will continue to do what is, I spent my entire career in the public service until I entered politics in 2011. So I started serving at the age of 19. Now I am, I'm 60. So for the last 41 years, the bulk of my life has been in the public service, the last 10 years in political appointments. And I will continue to do what is useful and for Singaporeans and what is meaningful. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's a good question to wrap up the conference. We have come to the end of this press conference. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you very much.
You've just watched Cabinet Ministers, including PM Lee, at a press conference earlier today, addressing DPM Heng's decision to step down as the leader of the fourth generation team.
The Straits Times' Deputy News Editor Royston Sim is here with us to break this all down. Welcome, Roy. Roy, DPM Heng stepping aside as the 4G leader and essentially taking himself out of consideration as the next MP. Quite an unexpected development, isn't it? I mean, considering he was poised to take over PM Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I think unexpected development is probably an understatement. It's in terms of the significance, it's quite a seismic announcement. I don't think many people would have seen this coming at all. It wasn't that long ago when the 4G coalesced and decided on DPM Heng as their leader. It was November 2018. So between then and now, it hasn't been that much time. And although PM had said, last year after the G that he would stay on for as long as it took, to hand over to a successor, hand the country over to a successor in good shape. I don't think there was any hint at all, that DPM Heng would step aside as the 4G leader. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so while he is stepping down as the fourth generation team leader, it's important to stress that, of course, DPM Heng will remain as the Deputy Prime Minister as well as Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies. But on the other hand, he will relinquish his finance portfolio during the next cabinet reshuffle, which PM Lee said is in about 2 weeks. What does this mean, Roy, in terms of how significant his role will be in the cabinet?
So he will still play a major role in the cabinet. He's still the Deputy Prime Minister. He still will have oversight of all the economic policies. So he will still shape, the broad strokes of major plans, economic plans. And PM has also said that he expects DPM Heng to sort of play a mentoring role to the younger ministers, along with himself, with the two senior ministers, Teo Chee Hean and Tharman Shanmugaratnam. So he will still be actively involved. He will still give his input in cabinet discussions. So he will remain a presence. But I think what will be interesting will be to see who replaces him as finance minister in the next reshuffle. Because bearing in mind the finance portfolio is a heavyweight portfolio, and it's the previous prime ministers, all of them have held the finance portfolio, including PM Lee himself and DPM Heng, until he stepped aside. So it will be interesting to see, who is appointed to that post, and I think that will also lend itself to the reading of tea leaves, as to who could be next after DPM Heng.
Yep. Let's talk about the DPM role as well. In time to come, will Mr. Heng also step down from the Deputy Prime Minister position?
I think it's too early to say. It is possible, but you could also envision a scenario where you have PM Lee, you have DPM Heng, and perhaps a younger 4G minister. So it is possible that he steps down. It's also possible that he's, at some point in time, I don't think that will happen anytime soon, but it's also possible that he stays on as DPM till the end of the term. I mean, PM did say that in terms of the cabinet reshuffle and cabinet changes, it's a continuing evolution, and perhaps the younger ministers will step up and assume more responsibilities when they are ready. What time, when that would be, that remains to be seen.
Okay. Well, today's announcement, it definitely opens up the field on who will be the next 4G leader. Who are the front runners, you think? Especially since you have to consider that long runway, that phrase that was bandied about today.
So the field pretty much is wide open, as you have pointed out. And I think when looking at who are the possible front runners, we'll go back to 2018 and look at the names that were thrown up then. So one of them is definitely Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun Sing, who was basically DPM Heng's deputy, when the 4G leaders decided on their number one. DPM Heng said he had chosen Mr. Chan as number 2. So certainly I think Mr. Chan would still be up there as one of the names to watch in terms of this succession race. And I suppose the other person whose name was has been bandied about before was Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung. So I think he would be another person to watch. So both of them are in their early 50s. So younger than DPM Heng, who is 60 this year. And I suppose the other minister who has been, who is younger but has been sort of rising in terms of prominence would be Mr. Desmond Lee, who has sort of seen an expanded portfolio with the National Development Portfolio. And I suppose I would be remiss to omit Education Minister Lawrence Wong. His star has really been rising. He's, helmed the multi-ministry task force on COVID-19. He's been very much in the spotlight. He's handled it, well. He's been clear in terms of, explaining the situation, calming presence. And also, he was the person that the PAP chose to front its post-GE sort of post-mortem to the to the party cadres and also to the media. I think he would be another person to look out for as well.
Right. Yeah. So Roy, so you've mentioned these names. We want to know now what's the process of selecting this next 4G leader. Then and how soon will the decision be made? Because we know that earlier on PM Lee did mention as well.
Sort of timeline, right?
Sort of a timeline in his speech.
Yeah. So the PAP, selects its leaders by what's the phrase? I mean, basically everyone has to agree, by consensus. Right. They agree on a leader. They pick a leader by consensus. So. In the previous round, and even in previous transitions, the team had sort of, at that time, had agreed on who they would choose to lead them. So likewise, back in 2018, the PAP leaders had decided, it was going to be DPM Heng. Yeah. So I would imagine this time round, they will have to go back to the drawing board and once again go through that process of, deciding among themselves who is the best man to lead them and be sort of first among equals. So they would have to sort of go through the whole process again, given all that's happened and with the pandemic still with us and uncertainties in the future. Who do they think is the best person that will be able to lead Singapore into the future? After PM Lee hands over the reins. So in terms of the timeline, that's still very uncertain. I mean, PM Lee, as you mentioned, gave a ballpark sort of figure or sort of time frame. He said it's not going to take a few months. It's not going to be as quick as that. But he hopes, they will be able to come to a decision before the next general election, so that they can go to the next GE, with, I guess, electorate clear on who is going to, take over from PM Lee as the next leader, or who is the PAP's next leader. So,
and GE has to be held by 2025, right?
Yep, that's right.
One.
That's right. So, I guess he is hoping that by then, by the time the next GE comes around, the 4G leaders would have decided, and who is going to be the next leader, and so that when they go into the election, everyone knows who the next leader will be.
Okay, but for now, PM Lee said in his this development has set back his succession plan.
Yes, that's right.
And so for the foreseeable future, he will remain, PM Lee will remain Prime Minister, possibly until the next GE, you think?
That is possible. I think he did not close the door on that. I mean, he has made clear that he wants to hand over the baton. He doesn't want to stay on longer than necessary. But he also said that he will hand over when his successor is ready to take over. Whether that will happen by the GE, it's possible. But it may also be the case where the next person, the PAP's 4G leader, may only be ready to take over the reins after the GE. So in which case we will see sort of a repeat of GE 2020, where it was PM Lee leading the PAP into battle, and then handing over the reins to his successor after the election.
Right. Well, I mean, there have been older world leaders. I mean, US President Joe Biden comes to mind, of course.
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for joining us today,
Thank
Roy.
you, Olivia.
Yeah, we've been speaking with Royston Sim, Deputy News Editor at the Straits Times.
Now, of course, you can visit straitstimes.com for more on this story. I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Thanks for joining us and have a good night ahead.